May we hold this moment in its perfection as we pause and reflect with family and friends on what it means to flourish, to let ideas and experiences ferment for 4 years and then unfold with limitless possibilities. May we hold this moment in its perfection as we pause and embrace our relief and unsettledness, our laughter and tears, joy and disappointment as a gift, an offering that comes from being genuinely present to the beauty and complexity of our education. May we hold this moment in its perfection as we pause and remember those who have nurtured us, who have sacrificed, inspired, and cared for us, making this day possible. Those who are here today as witnesses, and those who are here in spirit, loved ones who have passed, and friends like David Blackett, whom we miss. May we hold this moment in all of its perfection, breathing deeply and slowly, and may the wisdom of what we hold as sacred surround us, giving us strength to bless our experience of this place. Amen.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our faculty, staff, parents, families, friends, and most important, our graduating seniors. We're delighted to have you at Colorado College sharing this moment with us. For our graduates, this is a weekend of celebration, but also a time to reflect on accomplishments. During the past few years, you've pushed yourselves to think differently, dared to ask challenging questions, and pursued many passions. For all of you, reaching this moment is evidence of hard work and persistence. However, you didn't get here on your own. Others, especially your parents and families, have encouraged and supported you. Today, I hope you take time to thank them. I would also like to thank them. To our CC parents, thank you for entrusting your sons and daughters to Colorado College. On behalf of the faculty and staff, it has been our pleasure to watch these young people grow in and out of the classroom. We hope that graduation is their launching pad, because we expect that in their time here will propel them to a lifetime of learning and personal growth. It's become custom in recent years at CC for graduating seniors to nominate a faculty member to deliver the baccalaureate address. I'm pleased to introduce one of the students who nominated today's speaker. Alex Kronman is a graduating senior who majored in political science. He served as editor of CC's student newspaper, The Catalyst, for almost 3 years and has been a passionate proponent of growing our journalism program. Please join me in welcoming Alex Kronman.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's an honor to introduce Professor Matt Bakker, who this year the class of 2012 chose to give our baccalaureate address. The hallmark, or a hallmark, of the block plan is that epic fourth-week conclusion. That's generally when professors make these heady, hidden connections and reassure students that despite what a month of colonialism, contemporary American politics, or, God forbid, French New Wave cinema might seem to indicate, everything will indeed be okay. That, however, is not Matt's style. I remember sitting there in my first class with him, waiting for that silver bullet to fix Mexican migration, but it never came. That's the challenge Matt presents us with. What if there is no easy fix to the world's ills? What if we can't invent and innovate our way to solutions? What if we actually have to do something? More than teach sociology, Matt Bakker teaches how to engage with the world, and it's through his uncompromising ethics, his inspiring leadership, and his genuine thoughtfulness that he's helped transform my worldview and that of so many of my peers. Thank you, Matt, for being more than just a dedicated professor, but also a true mentor and a great friend. It's really meant a lot to me. Please join me in welcoming the man, the myth, the legend, Professor Matt Bakker.
Of course, it's always difficult to follow an introduction like that, but thank you very much, Alex. I really appreciate it. I want to thank President Tiefenthaler and her office for the invitation to do this, and more than anything, to thank you all in the graduating class for nominating me to be your speaker at this important event. The title of my talk today is Dare to Imagine Things Differently. Let me begin. I want to reflect today, as most of us probably are, on the topic of transitions. More specifically, I want to link this moment of transition, the class of 2012's impending entry into the world of college graduates, to a broader set of issues related to the possibility, indeed the necessity, for social change and a certain type of global citizenship. You all embark on this transition from college life to the real world at an unenviable time. Our world faces a number of interrelated crises of both short and long-term varieties. Let me just mention three. On the economic front, You're about to enter a job market still rocked by the consequences of the global financial debacle, unleashed right around the time that you came here to CC 4 years ago. This parallels broader trends in economic restructuring over the previous 3 to 4 decades that have increasingly polarized the distribution of wealth and income in this country, that have eroded any semblance of a social safety net, and generally reduced the size, capacity, or even expectation for government to ensure the general public welfare. All of these trends constitute the backdrop underlying that painful uncertainty that many of you undoubtedly feel as you consider your short-term employment prospects. Extending out from these immediate concerns with economic prospects, we might also think about the crisis of galloping levels of drug-related violence rocking our neighbors to the south in Mexico. There, increasingly violent drug cartels are locked in bloody and sadistic turf battles to control access to this country's seemingly insatiable desire for a wide variety of illicit drugs, from cocaine and heroin to marijuana and meth. The grisly scenes of decapitated and dismembered bodies that we have witnessed in recent weeks are only the latest chapter in a protracted drug war that has claimed over 50,000 victims in the last 6 years. Then there's the even bigger question of global climate change. It's now indisputable that any attempt to rein in runaway climate change will require significant reductions in CO2 emissions, perhaps by as much as 85% or more. These emissions are, of course, directly related to the burning of fossil fuels, the main source of energy in the world economy, whose use continues apace, despite the warnings of the scientific community and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The most recent estimates from the U.S. Department of Energy show that global CO2 emissions from fossil fuel combustion in the year 2010, the latest year recorded, continued to grow, outpacing by nearly 5% the previous record high emissions from 2008. The challenge, it seems, is how we can reconcile the competing demands for continuous economic growth with a reduction in fossil fuel consumption. Barring miraculous technological improvements in energy consumption and generation, our global capitalist economy, with its unyielding growth imperative, would appear to be on a collision course with human well-being and survival. I don't bring these issues up here simply to make you feel bad. I mention them because I want to make 2 points. First, in a certain metaphorical sense, these 3 issues, our immediate economic prospects, drug-related violence in Mexico, and global climate change, would appear to represent examples of social problems located at escalating distance from our own lives, from the local and immediate concerns with our own livelihoods, to problems at the more removed, transnational, and global scales. But these issues, and the myriad other social problems currently affecting our world, are not really removed from us. They are resolutely not someone else's problem. In this era of what scholars call neoliberal globalization, characterized by a single, integrated global economy driven by market principles, we're all caught up in processes and practices linking us to the wider world. Like it or not, our position in the world, whether as students or investors, voters or consumers, thoroughly implicate us in the social, political, and economic processes generating these myriad social problems around the world. The second point is that as moral beings, we have an obligation to act to bring about social change, to minimize, if not eradicate altogether, the historically generated social conditions that produce inequality and injustice, that impede the full realization of human potential, and that threaten the very conditions of existence for this and future generations on this planet. In sum, the multiple interconnections linking us to global social problems compel us, in this age of globalization, to become active global citizens. This notion of global citizenship and its actual realization are, of course, deeply challenging. To be sure, many of you have already begun to think and to act as global citizens during your time here at CC. This can be seen, for example, in the work of students involved in the Zuia project, promoting community development in eastern Kenya. It is also clearly demonstrated by those of you who have initiated the valuable conversation about how we might bring the Colorado College Endowment in line with our community's stated core values of environmental sustainability and social justice. I applaud you all for this work. In the remainder of my talk, I want to push the discussion of global citizenship to think about how we might imagine and practice it, with the hope that we might minimize its inherent dangers and expand upon its transformative possibilities. The three central themes that I want to discuss are, first, the need to be aware of and to minimize the reproduction of global power imbalances. Second, the limitation of so-called market-based solutions. And third, the imperative to keep hope alive. Let me speak first about the dangers of global citizenship and the ever-present possibility that it will reproduce the very inequalities in material and political power across the world that we must aim to eliminate. In his famous theological statement, "To Hell with Good Intentions," written in 1968, Ivan Illich made a number of observations that would seem particularly relevant to any discussion of the desirability of global citizenship in the contemporary world. Speaking to a group of American college students about to set out for a summer volunteering on development projects in Latin America, Illich lampooned the desires and motivations of volunteers, missionaries, and Peace Corps workers hoping to help out in the developing world. He explained that, irrespective of their particular motivations, these volunteers were little more than salespeople of the American dream, foot soldiers in the geopolitical context of the Cold War, whose function was to share their own deeply held convictions about the desirability of the modern consumer lifestyle that could only be achieved by following in the path of the free world. From this perspective, engaging in volunteer work or development interventions in the Global South involves damaging power relations, as these well-meaning do-gooders simply serve as a transmission belt for a paternalistic and universalizing discourse that represents Western cultural values and forms of social organization as unquestionably superior to those of other peoples around the world. I believe that we must take this critique of volunteer work and development interventions very seriously. It presents a potentially fatal blow to the very possibility of global citizenship, especially if we believe that all forms of international engagement necessarily involve cultural imperialism. While I want us to take this provocation seriously, I worry that it can all too easily lead to an unproductive sense of resignation, an intellectual and political paralysis that keeps us from doing anything. because of the inherent tensions involved in any form of political action. We must overcome this paralysis and channel our hopes and our dreams towards effective practice in the world. Perhaps it's best to recognize that we can never fully eliminate power dynamics and imbalances. We should always be conscious of their existence and attempt to minimize them as much as possible in our efforts to enact global citizenship and work for social change. But it's also important to note that global citizenship, at least how I conceive it, is not the same as international volunteering or development work. The global citizenship that we should try to create is certainly not about helping others to be like us. It's not about imposition. The exercise of global citizenship should instead be about finding common ground with others, about creating spaces for dialogue and mutual learning that might allow us to find adequate and effective solutions to our global social problems. The other major difference is that it is by no means clear that global citizenship is to be achieved solely by engaging in actions in other parts of the world. It seems to me that much of the work involved in making the world a freer and a fairer place will involve not the replication of our lifestyle in other corners of the world, but a restraint on our own reach, a limitation of our ecological footprint, and a greater respect for alternative forms of social and economic organization. This brings me to my second point. Here I want to discuss the need to move beyond market-based solutions and seek instead collective solutions to our most pressing of problems, from material deprivation to environmental degradation. I want to emphasize the limitations of the neoliberal ideology that has become so pervasive in the world over the last 3 decades. By neoliberal, I'm referring to the free market doctrine that many of you might more easily recognize under the label of Reaganomics. One of the most dangerous consequences of this ideology is its market fundamentalism, the faith-like conviction in the power of the market mechanism to solve all manner of social ills. We've come to believe that our most pressing of problems can be solved through the market, that global warming can be averted by creating markets in pollution credits, or that the scourge of poverty can be eradicated by the expansion of global financial markets and the provision of microcredit to the so-called bottom billions. This market fundamentalism is pure fantasy. As the great economic historian Karol Polanyi taught us over a half-century ago, the belief in the curative powers of the self-regulating market is a utopian dream, or perhaps I should say a nightmare, that, if left to its own devices, will lead to the destruction of society and the natural environment on which it rests. The creation of a market society in which economic forces have been released from social constraints and regulations and allowed to act upon society as a power external to us is the cause of many of the most pressing problems we face today, not the salvation. The path forward is to find ways to re-embed our economy within society, to recreate economic institutions consistent with our social values, so that the economy again functions as a tool for our collective welfare rather than an external entity acting upon us. The means to do this is through collective social movements aimed at protecting society from the ravages of the self-regulating market. This involves the arduous task of recreating community, of forging collective identities, and struggling for the common good. In the end, social change can't be made real by liking it on Facebook. Nor is it to be found through the practice of ethical consumption. That is a palliative. It might make us feel better that our organic and fair trade lattes are making change 1 cup at a time. but it really does little to challenge inequalities and address the problems of impoverishment and environmental degradation brought about by our overindulgent consumer lifestyle. Now let me move on to talk about my final theme, the need to keep hope alive. It's beyond doubt that the task before us, the struggle to recreate community and to enact social change, is a challenging prospect. But if we give up before even trying, change can never happen. Fortunately, you, the class of 2012, having successfully gained the best of a liberal arts education, are the bearers of the requisite intelligence and creativity needed to succeed in the project of making the world a more decent and humane place for all its inhabitants. Take the critical thinking skills that you have so ably crafted here at CC out into the world and believe that those skills can be a powerful instrument of change, that they can help to transform a world that at times seems so impervious to change. All too often, this period of transition that you all are currently embarking on is characterized by incessant pressures to give up on idealism. We are told that we must abandon our hopes and our dreams for a better and a more just world. We are pressured to resign ourselves to the way things are. People tell us that we need to adopt the position of a supposedly more responsible and mature realism. I hope that many of you will hold on to your idealism, that you will resist this pressure to conform to the realities of a world that is so clearly and urgently in need of reform. So I say, proudly fly the flag of idealism. Dare to imagine things differently. Act upon your hopes and dreams. Struggle to make the world a better and more humane place. And always strive to make that which today seems impossible, not only possible, but real. In wrapping up, I'd like to leave you with a few words from Subcomandante Marcos, the spokesman for the Zapatistas in Chiapas, Mexico, a movement whose calls for the universalization of liberty, justice, and democracy rest on a similar foundation of hope and dedication. Marcos tells us of the Zapatistas' transformative experience, going from an isolated movement of mostly indigenous men and women in some of the most marginalized territories in all of Mexico to a central reference point in the worldwide struggle for a better future. He says, "We are united by the imagination, by creativity, by tomorrow. In the past, we not only met defeat, but also found a desire for justice and the dream of being better. We left skepticism hanging from the hook of big capital and discovered we could believe, that it was worth believing, that we should believe in ourselves. We learned that many solitudes did not make one great solitude, but a collective that found itself united beyond nationality, language, culture, race, and gender. As I see it, this is the hope that we must keep alive. That through our creativity, our dedication, and our belief in ourselves, we can unite our many solitudes into a collective force that can make the world a better and more inviting place. A place that we're proud to pass on to future generations. Thank you.
graduates, may you embrace the landscapes you are moving into without hesitation or regret, giving yourself fully like river rushing into open sea, ever flowing, ever deepening into the wild expanses within and all around you, risking being disturbed and changed so that your heart may open without fear or anxiety, seeing the humanity in every person, embodying deep kindness to all living beings, working for all that is just and sustainable. The world needs you, so may the sacred bless you and give you peace in this leaving. Amen.